Hey everyone, today we'll discuss the feedback loop, continuously enhancing AI products. Embrace the concept of iteration and improvement in the world of AI product development. Explore the importance of soliciting and incorporating user feedback, leveraging user-centric metrics and analytics to drive iteration enhancements that align with evolving user expectation. We're talking about the interaction between AI and UX. Stay tuned for a thought-provoking discussion with our guest. Welcome to Invincible Innovation Live Show. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm Ade Mazol-Palio, product design and AI expert. I'll be your host, and I have a very, very special guest, Nataly. Hi, Nataly.
Hi, Dee. Hi, everyone. Great to see
Nataly,
you.
Nataly Kuritz is an AI decision scientist, and I'm so happy that she's with me. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, and you're so invited to join the discussion and ask questions. And now we can start. So before we start with this topic, I wanted to talk to you about why we decided to talk about the intersection between AI and UX. Most people would think that you get lots of inputs from users as they interact with your app. The model is getting more inputs and more data into it. So why is the feedback from the user so important for the AI products?
So, AI products, from my perspective, are very special in the field of products that we all use. From one hand, we can see that they are everywhere. We even are not always aware of where the AI or machine learning or some smart, let's call it smart agent or intelligent agent, interacts with us as persons in our personal life and also in our business, work, job, or whatever. But from the other hand, all this field of understanding and in communication between the agent, the AI agent, and the person, the human person, is very, very greenfield for now. It's new, it's evolving, and you can see last half of the year after the ChatGPT and all these generative AI tools raised and came into our life, we can see that a lot of fears, a lot of feelings, a lot of hopes are involved, and we both professionals and non-professionals have a lot of things to say about it. And I think that we still have a long way to run together to learn each other, the human and this type of agent, and we will evolve together. We can see that our children, our kids evolve like differently than our parents sometimes together with this. So I think that the UX field, which is also kind of new in this field of AI, should evolve as well. Like there is a lot of work to be done there, both on the research and on the design and everywhere within the UX field, and a lot of things, interesting things to try, to check, to learn. The important thing to now is just to be there and
But you know, like I come from design, so I totally understand the importance of research. And of course, right now we have mainly a text interface that you write what you want and you get a very long answer whatsoever. But I think that most people would imagine that the AI learning model, learning algorithm, would figure out for himself what users need, the way they interact, they click, what they do with the application. We had that in the past, lots of analytics and information from any other application, but here even more. So what is missing? What is this missing link that we're talking about?
So one of the first missing links that I was not aware of its importance when I started working within AI field was the understanding. We all are talking about emotions, like how do you feel? Do you like my product? Don't you like my product? One of the problems is that we think that we understand something, but we don't. And then the feedback that we give is probably wrong one. I mean, it both mislead me as a user, but it also mislead the algorithm. So this misunderstanding of in both directions, like you could make a microcopy which is just bad. That's the use case you know about, but it is also something about how does the model interpret the feedback.
Yeah.
It's not about same processes we do, like overthinking or something like this, like human. It's more about understanding the biases, understanding the noises. This is something, understanding uncertainties, and understanding the context of the answer. Like if I say I don't like something, I don't want to use it, there could be a lot of reasons for not liking it, and it's not always related to the things that we could analyze. And
Right.
a lot of additional information should be collected, which we probably misuse or don't even not collecting today. And it's really, really hard to make it very systematic. I have different use cases you will need to develop new approaches to learn this part.
Yeah, as I understand it, and I'll tell you from my perspective, that the fact that someone is doing something, it doesn't mean that we know why. Why did this user decide to do this and not that? And we, as humans and as the machine, interpret that for this reason. And only when we meet these people and when really understand them, we could analyze what was the understanding of their side. What did they think? What did they feel while they did something? And I feel that in general, as a society, we're moving more to the digital era. Like everything is within the screens, and we're not going to the real world, really meeting people face to face, I mean, and really meeting these users. And even we already have tools for AI research, AI user research, and synthetic data that they create. So we're moving away from the possibility of even meeting people and just understanding them.
Yeah, I mean, in the long run, the idea is that we will communicate much better, that AI will help us to communicate. But it's like a new student in the class. The AI agent is like a new student that came from a different planet. And we need to learn how to incorporate him in our community, in our class of humans. And we also need to learn how to behave right together. And this evolution is very dynamic. We all learn things during these interactions. We can't avoid them. Like you go out of your home or you open your mobile, everything is AI, but every day you behave differently. How much do you rely on these tools? How much do you trust it? Why do you trust it? The reasons that you trust or distrust something, or use or not using something, these are two completely different questions, by the way. They are not related, but the question of trust, which is officially, people do deal with this within AI, I think the way we interpret trust and the way we build trust within this type of communication is also under investigation for now, for all of us, from all fields around this. So.
Yeah, I think that what we were talking about, I'll give an example about trust, and we discussed it in our previous meeting. So I've done an application. I worked with a company doing a startup doing an application for banking, and financial institutes are very structured and traditional, and their algorithm help with bonds, so creating more money out of bonds actually. And there is someone in the bank that this is what he's doing, and he doesn't want anyone else to do what he's doing. And for sure, he doesn't want to believe that there is this kind of machine that takes his 30 years of experience and doing it much better than him. And this is the beginning of a relationship of mistrust and even sometimes negative emotions for what you're offering them. So sometimes when people are doing some kinds of machine or startup or application product, they are not thinking about the other side, which is this person that might be very reluctant to use what they're offering.
I think that we have a lot of fears related to like they will steal our job or something like this. Not only in bank and traditional users, but also high-tech workers that now like saying, okay, I can use Copilot for my job. That's great, but tomorrow he will just do my job fully and they will not need me at all. I think that from my perspective, the way there is pretty far in the sense that the thing that the agent doesn't have is the criticism. Like what the skills that we value very much for now is the ability to repeat something very, very consistently. And we all learn to do this when you learn to ride the bicycles. This type of skills are very, very important. And when we educate our kids, we say like, you need to do it always right. You need to do the same exercise many, many times, and you should always be right. And this is something we learn to do. We know how to do it as human, but actually we invest a lot of energy in education ourselves, doing this specifically, making something that they can do right once to something that they can do right many times. This is this experience value that we all know about. But there is another skill that we probably underestimate for now, which is the ability to find the mistake, ability to ask questions, ability to be critical thinkers. And this is something we probably will invest much more efforts in within education, with your self-education later in years, because this repetitional tasks could be delegated to these agents. That's fine. He still will not be able, the one who understands us, the one who can criticize the solution, what happened, who can track and monitor and see what's next. Like what is the next first time skill, not what is the next repetitive skill that we need to do.
Yeah.
And this evolution is not going to disappear. From my perspective, I hope so. Okay.
Yeah.
Like technology sometimes surprises, but I have to say that we probably very stick to our education and the way we were educated in the Western world of precisions and accuracy, and probably there is some rethinking we need to do there, but I would not decrease myself to this repetitive machine.
Yeah, I totally understand. And you talked about education, and it seems that what we're learning right now, which is mainly knowledge or repetitive task being very accurate, is not really what our kids need. And this is something that I always think about. But when you talked, I had another thought that we are, as human beings, we're this machine that learn from their failures, right? And when we fail, we say, okay, something went wrong, and then we're recalculating our routes, right? And if the machine doesn't make mistakes, or it makes mistake and just make it much better, or the same task is perfect or more accurate, the creativity of what we're doing in our lives would not be in a machine. We're like being curious and trying to solve it differently or to find a different route altogether.
Yeah, the question of creativity is very interesting. I don't have an answer for this, but I think that the generative AI, the ones that we are all talking about now in the high tech, does have some kind of errors and some kind of creativity. But the creation process does have some steps in it. You generate something, like let's say you write a song. So you generate list of words, and then you look at this and you ask yourself, how do I feel about this? And then you show it to another person and you say, how do you feel about this? And then probably another, and after 10 years, you can ask the same question. You will probably have different answers, and you will probably change it a bit, or probably not, or probably it will be irrelevant for you tomorrow morning. And so there are different parts of this process. The generation itself, making errors, trying new things, even curiosity in some sense is something machine can try to provide, because this is only about space exploration, what we call, like let's try something. This is something machine can do, but it's still hard to say how would you feel about this. Would this answer your needs for now? And this is not the question that machine will answer. This is something you need to be there and to make sure it's okay. This is the critical thinking, the ability to ask right questions. And asking right question is not like about just generate questions. It's much more creative process than people could think about.
Yeah, and I think that when people are creating these technologies, and these are very fast and powerful technologies, the AI, generative AI especially, they're very enthusiastic about the technology, and sometimes they forget that there is a need. It needs to be in the world because of something which is good for humanity, something which is good for parts of society, whatever. Somebody needs to use it, enjoy it, and make something good out of it. And what you said about how do you feel about it, I don't think that this is the first thing that an entrepreneur doing a generative AI would think. Like, what would our users feel? It's not something that is so important for them.
I think again, from my perspective on the industry today, mainly UX researchers are the person who ask this question within the team, and they have some tools to try to tackle it and trying to answer it. It's not an easy question because our feelings evolving, and we also need to take this in account and to understand how to evolve together, the algorithms and the product as a whole, and the person who use it, who or probably same product can be useful today for one type of persona and tomorrow to another one. And this is also kind of a different evolution that we need to be there to make sure we don't miss this step.
Yeah. So what are these challenges that arise when we prioritize data-driven insights over direct interactions with end users and the context or this AI development?
So I'll give you some perspective of what does it mean making decision. Making decision, that means that there is something you can act about, you have a choice to do, and you think or you expect this choice to be meaningful to the outcome. Like, I can choose to take this way or the other way when I'm going from my home to my work. If this decision is like meaningful or not, I'm not always I know, because sometimes there is a huge difference, although the distance is the same, and sometimes there is no difference. And we want to collect data in order to help us to make this decision. And then we want some kind of a tool that will analyze this data for us. So I will not need to look at all this data, and it will just tell me what is the decision that I need to do. And probably at the next step, it will just make the decision for me. So it will reduce the number of decisions I need to do as a person, because this is a very hard work for us to make decisions. Yeah. So if you don't have a decision at all, probably data-driven is just good enough, because it doesn't involve you from the beginning. Like whatever, I have the data. I made the statistics. I make the math. Machines are really good doing deterministic or statistical math, especially statistical math. It's doing better than us. So probably you don't need anything else. When you try to make a decision, there is something that the data doesn't include. And this is all the unknowns. The unknowns could be internal of the user. Like, I don't like to go through this street because there is no shadow there and it's too hot, like in Israel now. Yeah. And probably this information was not collected, or probably I don't care about this. Probably it's much important for me to come faster than to come from a nice walking way. So if there is a decision, there are a lot of unknowns. Some unknowns are just unknowns because this is the data we didn't collect, and we don't know we didn't collect it. And probably the user can tell us something like, let's go to collect this data. Probably it's impossible to collect it, just technically impossible. Yeah. But sometimes there is data that no one knows. This is the use case of stock exchange or something like future data that no one knows. We can't know what's going on. And then you need to make a decision which is not based on data. It's based on how would you deal with the outcome of the decision. This is not in the data. It's never in the data. Mm-hmm. So this is the place where you need to incorporate the user. You need to put him in the loop and to understand what his priorities for now, how would he deal with that, what are the causes, like what are the reasons, what are the motivations, what are the intents, what are the prices that he want to be aware of or don't want to be aware. Some fields within AI, like causal inference, are trying to answer part of these questions. They will never answer all of them, but even these types of technologies are not incorporated in most of current products we use. And it's really hard, technologically speaking. Like, people try to do it, but it's really hard. So the human in the loop is a hard question. Yeah. There. And in this, specifically when you have something about making decisions and something about unknown data, then you need to think about, like, what do I need in addition to my huge and great AI machine learning algorithms and products.
Yeah. So we're talking about predictions, like we mentioned stocks or in any other financial algorithm, or just trying to imagine what would be the future of someone who's doing something, like for ads, for marketing, for copywriting, whatever, and trying to decide right now what is the best decision based on our assumption of what would be the future, what would be the next decision in step in line. And it reminds me of a Minority Report. You remember this Spielberg movie? That they had this capacity of understanding who is going to be a criminal, who's going to create a crime.
Okay.
And then and then they went after him before he did it, right? So
Okay.
what do you think about that?
So the deep and philosophical questions of choice, of personal choice that we have in all religional contexts, I think it's still here. I mean, both from physics perspective and from spiritual perspective, it is a very, very important question of like, if the world is not deterministic and the future was not defined from yesterday, so there is something we always don't know. And this is something to remember when you are, especially when you are a scientist, because as a scientist, we sometimes think that, like, okay, we formulate whatever we can, we formalize whatever we can, we do calculations wherever we can, and we work a lot on this part, but we need to remember always the other part, the unknowns, the unseens, the unobserved, the counterfactuals, what we called in our field of causality, we call it counterfactuals. Like counterfactual sometimes is defined as the parallel world. And this is exactly like this thinking of there are few parallel worlds that could come true or could be our reality tomorrow, and we never know which of them will come. Like sometimes we have some probabilities. The probabilities are perfect. It could be 1% whereas 99%, yet there is another 1% that we didn't take in account.
Yeah.
And here is also something very important about the user. We as a human we also don't like this 1%. We also don't really know how to deal with this. So even if my program will tell you that there is 1% that tomorrow will be a rain in Tel Aviv, you don't like it. You will not know what to do with this. Sometimes it's like, so do I need to take an umbrella or not? Let's say that this is the decision that you're trying to take. It's going to be really hard for you to take this decision if I give you this percentage, because we are not used to thinking this probabilistic way.
Yeah. And it confuses us. We don't like this unknown. So we prefer to go, like, even if it's 70%, we prefer to go to that direction. There are more probability that it will be this direction, and we don't like the other options.
Yeah, and this kind of communication is very, very, very specific. It's evolving. It's something we learn to live with this probabilistic or statistical world that the AI machine can present us, can give us. They can tell us about, like, mathematically speaking, they can give some kind of uncertainties. The question is, do you want to know about it? Like, who is the user and how would you use it? Even if you want, okay, let's say that you're very curious and you want to know all the numbers. I'll give you all the numbers. What should you do with this? Like, how would this affect the important decisions? Would it just overload you? Would you feel just bad about all these numbers?
Yeah. The first thing that comes to my mind is the medical field. Like, you have like 80% of recovery. That's fine. What about this 20% of not recovering? So we as humans are not built to think this way. Even it's like 30%, oh, it's better than 20. Like, what does that mean for me when I'm sick that I could not recover, right? So it's the same thing. It doesn't matter what the numbers are.
Yeah, and it's also assuming that there are parallel worlds that I talked about before. In case of recovery, let's assume that the knowledge itself can change your recovery. And no one knows could this or could not, because we don't really understand in deterministic way the immune system and the psychological and neural systems. Like, all this complex system, they have some kind of effect, because we know about placebo effects and other relevant effects.
Right.
So there are some systems that we don't understand. We don't understand them deterministically. We don't understand them mechanistically. So there are some mechanisms that we play with, but we don't know how do we play with. And the existence of this knowledge or this information or this data could affect this type of mechanisms, and we don't know how.
Yeah. And
This
it
is
seems that as a world, we overvalue what is calculated easily, and what is hard to understand is undervalued, because it's really hard to understand people's feeling and their mind and the way the interaction with between the immune system and the mind and the feelings and everything. It's so hard to really analyze it and have like numbers there. And therefore we underestimate these kinds of this 1% that we don't want to think about is really hard to understand, and we don't want it in our lives because it's we cannot really calculate it. But more than that, if we would have said, okay, let's go to this 1%, how do we really measure it? How do we really understand that? Right? So a machine could not understand how much hope do I have as a patient. Oh, today I'm 24. Yesterday I was 26. Hope. What you yourself cannot measure it. So it's really hard. And when we have this world, which is very, in general, before AI, I think everything was calculated, and cognition and thought and numbers and science was very overvalued in a sense. It's very important. It's not that I'm underestimating science, but this additional cofactors sometimes are, we don't want to think about them. We don't want to even imagine that there is something that we cannot deterministically calculate and decide.
Like, I have to say that I'm pretty sure that different people in your audience now think differently on this. Like, there are people who like to know all the numbers, and they want to know that there is one chance for something, they will fight for it, and this will give them the all they need, hope, small hope to make the change and to increase this the chance to be there. Or at least probably the chances wouldn't change, but they will feel better all the way there. And this is another kind of impact that is important. But this is something that we need to make it more part of the process of the productization process. It could be money and it could be health, but at the end, this is part of the process. Both health and money have a lot to do with the perceptions, and this is something we need to remember.
Yeah, you're right. And so how do we ensure that user feedback is properly analyzed and translated into actionable improvement in the AI products?
I think that one of the things that should be done is the development of language. We don't have common language for now. From my understanding, people who comes to UX design and research have their own languages. People who comes to algorithms and machine learning usually have a bit different language. The best contact point that I know about is books by Kahneman and his colleagues, who try to make this type of translation between these two disciplines, and all this economics, psychology, quantitative parts are really helpful here. And incorporating more quantitative methodologies, using AI, using data science, using data collection to help UX research. And from the other direction, learning how to incorporate this within our algorithm development process, day-to-day work, from the first step of discovery to the last step of in evolving the product, probably not a new one. During all these steps, we need to talk. We need to learn to communicate in between our small community, like let's say product development communities, product development squad, or whatever you call it. But this is about process. This is about language development. And a lot of tries and failures that we still need to go through. I don't think we have like one good methodology to do the UX research. I don't think we have one good methodology to incorporate the results. This is something we need to fit and to learn and to generalize and to specify for the specific product. But I think that a lot of people don't even aware of the need and of the gaps within the industry. And this is the gap understanding that I think we still need to better investigate.
Yeah. First, I'm very happy that you're seeing this intersection, because I feel that as someone who comes from UX research and from design, I feel that in many cases it's like it's a nice to have, right? It's not really going deep into the product decisions or understanding, and in AI products even less, because the algorithm is so smart and they analyze and they get a result and they get so much data and they have a way to understand it better.
I just thought this week some kind of name of the lecture in the conference related to medical AI. The name of the lecture was why you don't have why you should not ask the doctor what does he need for his product. Like there are still questions like this. We still think a lot of people in the industry still think that asking the user what does he need is a bad idea. It is a bad idea, but this is the problem is not the problem is with the way you specify the question, and not with the questioning process itself. And this is something people sometimes miss.
Could you give us an example of how soliciting user feedback led to a significant improvement in an AI product?
I have some examples from my work in industry. Once it was on the part of collecting data, the way we collected data and asked questions, like reformulating the questions that we collected answer, could increase the accuracy of the model based on this answer, that was based on this answer. So accuracy of the model, performance of the model, AI model could really be improved because the data is just more clean. Like we can't filter, sometimes we can filter the data afterwards, but it's much better to just collect it better. And in cases where the collection is through answering questions, like a lot of chatbots and dialogues that we have now in many products. So just to make sure that the question that we ask within the digital format is understood similarly to the same question asked in a format of person-to-person interaction could be interpreted and understood differently. And when you just change a bit the question, or you ask a different question, but you try to collect the same information, this could really improve the accuracy. This is one use case. Another use case is when everyone complained about things, like users like to complain and say, this is not good for me, this is not good for me. But these complaints are always come in kind of a context. And understanding this context is super important, because we can collect data. I can look at UX research that I just looked last week, and I see that my users have some kind of problem within very specific process. And then I understood that this type of user that we asked within this process of UX research was an onboarded user, while the process that I'm trying to improve is the onboarding process itself. So all the complaints were kind of, it's nearby, but it's not like, it's very, very biased. And it's out of my distribution. From data perspective, I would call it, like a lot of answers are out of distributions of the relevant population. This is, I always give this example of like when you test drugs, you usually don't test it on pregnant women, but there are specific drugs that are just developed for pregnancy. And then whatever you learn from the other population is just not relevant. And sometimes it's easy to understand, but the practice is that in many times we just miss this context.
Yeah, and it's related to bias in general, the way that the data is analyzed, and the data sets themselves are sometimes biased, and we need to balance them in a way, or try to understand them, and user feedback going to the real users is a good way of, one of the ways we could do it.
I mean, these biases are unavoidable. It's not like I can develop a process that will be completely unbiased or denoised, completely denoised. There is no way to do it. The smart part or the creative part of our work is to balance it and to match the biases that we have in reality to realize that we have them, and to understand how do we deal with it. What can we decide about from the collected data, and what could not be decided from this data, which is also an important productization process. Like, okay, I have this data. This data couldn't teach me about this and this and this and this decision. It's relevant only for this type of decision. This is the important thing. We still need to make this critical thinking I told you before, that as a person we need to do.
Yeah, I think it's critical thinking and being humble. It's like scientists sometimes are not that humble, so we need that. So we're almost done with time. I have my last question. What is your number one tip for AI entrepreneurs today?
Number one what? Sorry?
Tip for AI entrepreneurs.
Wow. The immediate answer is like, make sure you do need AI there. Like, if you can do it without, please do. I believe it's very interesting. I believe it's very important, but as an entrepreneur, I'm not sure I would go for AI as a first thing. And usually, even as a person, as a scientific person, I'm looking to understand and to map what is deterministic, what is statistic, and what is unknown within the problem I'm trying to solve. If I need the statistical inference, I will use AI, but you need to see that this is the MVP you really want to go for. Within the map of the problem that you try to solve, is the statistical part is the most important. If not, if this is not the first value you will provide to the user, start somewhere else, either at the UX part, the unknown part, or with the deterministic part, which is just normal technology, but or mechanistic part, but it does not incorporate all this problematics with AI.
Yeah. It seems that AI is this buzzword everybody's using. It doesn't matter if they do need it or it's very partial, or it's even could be solved with like a list of rules and that's it. It's like something that they usually use. And it's big, and I understand. And they would get more investment sometimes because of that. So that drives them to use it sometimes.
From the other hand, you will it will give you the buzz. From the other hand, people don't really like AI because it takes more time, it's more expensive. If you can define a rule that everyone understands, it's much easier both from development and from UX perspective. So I would go there if you can. If you can't, and you really see this added value in the AI, in the better statistical understanding, just make sure that you have two persons in your company, the one for the AI development and the other one for the to make sure that the human who is going to use this AI will understand your product. And this should be started from the first day. Even before you start developing algorithms, make sure that the AI developer, whoever it is, will have a companion who will lead him through the user understanding.
Wow, I love this. That's a very, very good statement for our discussion. So thank you for that. So where could people hear more about your work and contact you?
I'm in LinkedIn usually, and I don't have conferences that I plan to participate in like following months, but I like to go to some. So I guess LinkedIn is the best way to communicate
Yes, this
for
is how
now.
we communicated. So
Yeah.
it's a best platform. So I want to thank you for your time. It's been very pleasant and insightful and interesting to talk to you, Nataly. And I want to say another thing, that I always try to have like 50% women and 50% men. So this is how I started with this podcast. And through the year or so, it went down. It's so much harder to get women to talk, especially live. So I really appreciate that, and thank you for being here. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Adi. It was really nice to meet you.
Yeah. Thanks. And to all of you change makers out there, thank you for joining us. And if you want to hear more about what I do, go to Invincible Innovation, and I'll see you next week with another innovative, insightful talk. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.